Okay, it's 7:05, and I would like to call to order the October 12th, 2023 meeting of the Waukegan Planning and Zoning Commission. Before we get started, I want to just let all of the commissioners know that there is a new microphone system. In order to be able to speak, you have to actually press the microphone, press the where it says push, and speak into the microphone. The microphone will go off as soon as you let go. And this is even when we're doing votes, roll calls, you need to make sure that you have your microphone on. When you push it, the green light is on. That shows you that it's on. And this is very important because these meetings are recorded. And in order for the recording to pick up your voice, the microphone has to be on. I'm going to ask that you all speak into your microphone too, please. Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Anderson?
Here.
Bill?
Here.
Griffin?
Griffin
Grimes?
is not going to be coming tonight. She called, said that she couldn't make it.
Grimes?
Here.
Haug?
Here.
Haynes?
Here.
Rivera?
Here.
Rodriguez?
Here. We do have a quorum. Next item, item 2, minutes of the September 14th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. You should have copies of the minutes in your packets. And if you haven't had a chance to read them, please take a real quick look right now. And I'm asking for a motion.
I move for the approval.
I'll
Motion
second
by
it.
Commissioner Grimes to approve, second by Commissioner Anderson. Do we have any comments, corrections, or changes to the minutes? If not, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Haynes?
Yes.
Haug?
Abstain.
Grimes?
Here. Yes. I'm here too.
Rivera?
Abstain.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries, minutes are approved. Next item, item 3, this is audience time. This is an opportunity for anybody who wants to address the commission on any matter, regardless of whether it's on the agenda tonight or not. And just remember that any of the items that are on the agenda are public hearings, and so you will have a chance to participate, ask questions, and make comments during the public hearings. But if anybody would like to address the commission at this point, please come forward. Okay, moving on. Item 4, old business. Is there any old business that we need to discuss? Nothing? Okay. Item 5, new business. We have 3 items on the zoning calendar. Item A, zoning calendar number 2731, is a request for a map amendment from CR, Conservation, Recreation, Agriculture, to R1, single-family residence at 35704 North Garrick Avenue. Who will be presenting for the city? I guess that's Sam.
Good evening, Commissioners. Here to present the first case for tonight. It is a map amendment conditional of an annexation. Tonight, you are only considering the map amendment portion. As you recall, any property that is annexed into the city of Waukegan is automatically zoned CR, Conservation Recreation. This map amendment is asking to zone it for R1 single-family residential. The address, 35704 North Garrick Avenue. That's at the corner of Sherman and Garrick in the 5th Ward, or next to the 5th Ward. It is directly across the street from Waukegan municipality boundaries and R1 zoning. If you want to go to the next slide, you'll be able to see that location. The red dot is the location of the home, and as you can see, it is directly adjacent to R1 zoning. If you want to go to the next slide, utilities are on this map. The green is sanitary and the blue is water. Again, as with any annexation, you are required to pay for the connection, the homeowner that is, so there's no cost to the city. The reason for this application is the petitioners would like to build a home there. They would like that to be on city water and sanitary, and we require that any home that is on water and sewer is annexed in the city of Waukegan. Here to answer any questions you might have.
No questions from the commissioners? Okay. Who is making the presentation for the petitioner? I'd like to swear you in. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, and as you speak, please give your name and your affiliation to the project. And before you leave the podium, there should be a sign-up sheet on the podium for you to put your name. I'm not sure what all information they're asking for, but your name, so that we have it for the record.
Thank you.
Okay, tell them your name.
My name is Robert C. Cooper.
And hi, my name is Jackie Ferguson Cooper.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, did he say proceed? Oh, okay. Well, we purchased this land, I believe it was back in January, February, with the intent to build a ranch home, 3-bedroom, two and a half bath ranch home. The square footage was around 1,600 square feet. It's not big or anything. It's just, basically, we wanted something that would accommodate, I have a heart condition, so I can't do stairs and all of that. So we just wanted to build something that would be convenient and easy for us as I'm getting older. And he older than me. Okay.
Yes, my name is Robert Cooper, and I've been living in Waukegan with Jordan my whole life. I went to Waukegan High School here, Webster, Whittier, and Waukegan East. I graduated in 1979. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions of the petitioners? Yes, when do you plan to start construction?
Well, technically, we're homeless, so we're waiting for the builder to get permits, so we needed to do this part first, so he can go ahead and apply for the permits to start building. I'm ready for him to start.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, I'd like to ask if there's anybody here in the audience who would like to speak out either in support of or opposition to this request? Okay, then I guess we're going to ask for a motion, and we're going to modify the motion procedure. Would you like to explain that, please?
Yes, Chair. So Section 310/6 requires this commission to submit findings of fact to the City Council upon a recommendation either for or against. And so what I would ask when crafting your motion would be to adopt the findings of fact as presented in the packet, and then in that same motion, recommend approval or denial of the application. So it's a two-step all-in-one motion, adopt the findings of fact and recommend approval or denial of the application.
Do we have a motion?
I'll give it a try. Jane, if you want to do it. I recommend, I recommend that we adopt the findings of facts in the packets that we received and recommend approval of the map amendment to rezone 35704 North Garrick Avenue from CR Conservation Recreation Agriculture to R1 Single Family Residence.
Okay, is that a motion? 'Cause you didn't actually say that, so you were recommending. Okay, yeah. That's all right. Just want to make sure we do things technically correct. Okay, that is a motion by Commissioner Anderson to adopt the findings of fact and to recommend approval of zoning calendar number 2731, a map amendment from CR Conservation Recreation Agriculture to R1 Single Family Residence at 35704 North Garrick Avenue. And I believe we have a second. Did somebody hear? Second by Commissioner Grimes. Any further discussion on this motion? Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes?
Haynes,
Yes.
Haug,
Yes.
Grimes,
Yes.
Rivera,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes, motion carries. Congratulations. The next step is going to be the Community Development Committee, which will meet Monday, November 6th at approximately 5 PM in this chamber. Okay, and the city, you can check with the city, the actual time will be set the Friday before, which is November 3rd. Okay? Thank you and good luck with your project. Okay, the next item, item B, zoning calendar number 2732, is a request for a conditional use permit for an automobile service station at 3001 Belvedere Road. And I guess Tyler will be presenting for the city.
Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. I am here before you to present zoning calendar number 2732, conditional use permit application for an automotive service station. The petitioner is Mark Madigan, who is with Take 5. The owner of the current building is White Castle. That's at 3001 Belvedere Road in the B3 zoning district. And this property has been vacant approximately 5 years. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the property. It's right at Belvedere and Green Bay. The last time I was up here, I was actually discussing the property directly to the south. So, yeah, a little familiarity with the corner there. Next slide, please. So this is just some aerial views of the lot. If you see, it's right there on the border as you're entering Waukegan from Park City. And again, there it is at the corner of Belvedere and Green Bay. Next slide, please. And some existing facade elevations. So they are planning to remodel the building. They're not going to demo it or anything. They plan to transform this side on the right hand. If you're looking from the east, they will add 3 bay doors. So you're sort of going through this side and exit through the left-hand picture and exit onto Belvedere, or you can go around and exit onto Green Bay. Next slide, please. And this is an illustration of that layout. As you see, they enter from Green Bay and go through the building, and they could either exit or drive around and exit on Green Bay. And I would like to point out that they are right in, right out only. We wanted to try to help with the congested traffic of that intersection. And there's also a existing curb cut that we are asking them to close, which is a lot closer to the intersection than we would like. So they're trying their best to limit the traffic. And next slide, please. So this is a facade elevations from their operation in Niles, Illinois. I would like to point out that the petitioner owns and operates 5 different Take 5 locations throughout Cook and McHenry County. This will be the first one that they want to bring to Lake County. And so you kind of see it's kind of small on the left-hand side. That's what the building used to look like. It was a Metro PCS and another retail store. They retrofitted it or updated it to add the 3 bay doors. So yeah, that's kind of what it'll look like at the one you'll see. And next slide, please. This is under construction. So if you could kind of see those 3 bay doors, that's where they'll be entering and exiting. And this is also a quick service operation. So it's not like the typical oil change where you'll leave their car there. They get to it when they get to it. You'll be in your car when they perform the service. So there will be no customers parking in the lot, leaving their cars there. It's pretty quick, and they say 10 minutes. So, it should be no concerns with parking. Next slide, please. These are some conditions I wanted to point out that are in the conditional use. Number 6, motor vehicles parked on site may not be advertised for sale or lease. Motor vehicles may not be parked on the property overnight or outside of business hours. All exterior trash receptacles shall be fenced with security fence and screened from any residential district or the public right-of-way with an opaque fence or landscape screen to a height of at least 6 feet, but no more than 8 feet. The permitted hours of operation for the business shall not extend beyond 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. No other type of car work or work No other type of car repair or work shall take place on-site or within the building. The petitioner shall have no more than 24 months to close the easternmost curb cut access and replace it with landscaping. If any delays to the schedule are created by required IDOT approvals, petitioner shall keep city staff informed and copied on written communication to that effect. And lastly, the petitioner shall have no more than 24 months to complete installation of all other landscaping. And there are a few other conditions, but those are pretty standard. They must keep an active business license. They must follow building and safety code. These are just the ones that are more unique to this property. And with that, I will open it up for questions.
Any of the commissioners have questions for city staff? Microphone.
That building's been vacant for a long time, so it's good to see that something's going to go there, so. That's all my comment I have.
Anybody else? Any comments or questions?
I liked the landscaping that was proposed. That also will clean up that site a bit.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you.
No? All right, who would be presenting for the petitioner? It's the two of you. Are you going to be speaking or answering questions?
Well, first of all, I'm Mark Madigan. I'm the franchisee.
The reason I'm asking is because I want to swear.
Oh, well, would you like our civil engineers to?
If they're going to be participating in any way, or if they might be asking questions.
I think it'd be a good idea to get them here. I agree. Thank you.
You don't all have to stand there the whole time, but I mean, at least, I'll swear you in case you have anything to add. Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, please proceed, and as you speak, please give your name and your affiliation to the project, and before you leave the podium, please make sure that you write your name on the sign-in sheet there. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mark Madigan. I'm the Take 5 franchisee, as mentioned by Tyler, for Cook County, Lake County, and McHenry County.
My name is Gates Ryan. I'm the managing director for the Take 5 locations in Lake, McHenry, and Cook, Northern Cook.
I'm Matt Callahan. I'm the project manager for a civil engineer firm for this site for Manhart Consulting.
I'm Andrew Anellis. I'm the project engineer with Manhart Consulting for this site.
Thank you. Please proceed.
So I think Tyler did a nice job of explaining what we want to do. As he mentioned, we have 5 quick lube oil change facilities. 4 are in Cook County and 1 is in McHenry County. We have 1 in Niles, which was referenced in the presentation. We've got 1 in Chicago in the Belmont-Cragen area. We've got 1 in Schaumburg, right at Gulf and Roselle Road, and we've got 1 in Mount Prospect on Rand Road, fairly near Central Street. And then we have 1 in Crystal Lake on the north side of the trade area, and Crystal Lake on Northwest Highway. It's a 10-minute oil change. We have extremely clean facilities. Most of our shops are 4.9 Google ratings. Our lowest is 4.6, so we run a very clean operation. We generally have 25 to 30 cars that visit us during the day. So that's really, if we're open 12 hours, that's 2.5 cars per hour at the most. So there's not going to be tons of traffic or stacking issues on the site. Our buildings are clean. The inside of our facilities are clean. It's a business that originated in the Southeast. So we are a franchise group. There are about 900 locations across the country, and I was the first franchisee in Illinois, and now there's 2 others that comprise the rest of Illinois. So It's a very popular concept, not only in the southeast, but in Illinois, it's fully sold out, and most of the country's sold out. So it's a great concept, and I guess I'd leave it at that, unless you have any questions or I missed anything.
Okay, do any of the commissioners have questions for the petitioners? Phone, please.
Yeah, I got it.
The oil that, how is the old oil going to be recovered? Is there going to be any issues with that?
So I'll tackle it, and then my managing director will fill in the gaps if I have any. But essentially, we take the oil, it drains into a pit, and it's pumped. It all stays above ground. It's pumped in a large waste oil tank, and on average, a company comes by once a week and gets the used oil out. We have oil separators in our sinks, our mop sinks. We don't push any of any oil, used oil or unused oil does not get into the drains. We have oil separators, and the waste oil is recycled. Does that answer your question, or?
Okay, we had a question over here. No? Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Commissioner Anderson?
I know I mentioned this before, but that's such an important corner for the city. And so having it look nice is really important, I think. And I do like the landscaping plan. So I know I said that already, but you've been on that corner, and I think that corner is just, it needs something, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think Niles is just one example, but if you Google all of our sites, they're all very nice looking buildings, and that's part of our brand is to not look like an oil change facility, but look like a nice operation. I think Waukegan will be proud, and I know we'll be proud once that building is complete.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay, now I'd like to ask if there's anybody here in the audience that would like to speak out either in support of or opposition to this request, or even just pose a question. Nobody? Okay. I guess I'd like to ask for a motion.
And again, do you want me to explain the difference in how we're drafting motions now?
Sure, why not?
Okay, so two-parter. Sure, no problem at all. So first part of the motion will be adopting the findings of fact in the packet. Second part will be approving or denying, recommending approval or denial of the application.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Anderson.
You want to do it?
Oh, Commissioner Rivera, okay. Microphone, please.
I'd like to set the motion to approve the findings of the fact that are stated in the packet for recommending approval, recommendation of approval. And I so move.
Okay, Commissioner Rivera makes a motion to adopt the findings of fact and to recommend approval of the request in zoning calendar number 2732 for a conditional use permit for an automobile service station at 3001 Belvedere Road. Is that correct? Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Haynes. Any further comments, questions, or discussions on this motion? If not, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Haynes?
Yes.
Haug?
Yes.
Grimes?
Yes, and good luck.
Rivera?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Congratulations. Good luck with your project.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
I'm going to miss that castle on the corner, but
What's that? It'd be 5 years old. I don't think you want that.
I had to get that in. Okay, moving on to item C, zoning calendar number V-3-23, request for a vacation of a portion of the right-of-way south of Glen Flora Avenue near 1207 Yeoman Street. Okay, you're ready to present?
Yeah, good evening,
Thank you.
Commissioners. So vacation 3-23, this is a vacation for a portion of the right-of-way. This is south of Glen Flora between Yeoman and Buttrick, kind of north of 1207 Yeoman Street. So that's the applicant. This is about a 60 by 16 portion of the right-of-way, so it's an alley, and they're looking to vacate just a portion of it. On the next slide, you'll see a look at kind of why we have this application before us. So these applicants were having a hard time with parking on their property. So due to the size of the lot and the size of the house, they don't have a driveway like you would see on the properties kind of to the east and south of them. They have alley access. So their driveway, you can see, or their driveway is coming off of the alley, and they had been parking kind of alongside their home in that green shaded area on gravel. So parking on gravel is not permitted, so we needed to get them parked on some hard surface. So they originally applied for a permit. This would have resulted, the one that they had proposed would have resulted in a driveway that was wider than what we allow. So we allow driveways no wider than 22 feet. Their proposed driveway was about 60 feet wide off of that alley. So the paving would have exceeded the 40% impervious surface that we allow as well. It would have exceeded that. So we are looking at doing a vacation to allow a little bit extra parking so that they don't have to pave that area. So on the next slide, you'll see the area that is, and on the next one, you'll see the area that is going to be vacated, and then that portion that is going to be returned to grass. So the portion that's highlighted green right now is kind of where that gravel and the parking is occurring. That's going to be returned to grass, and then that top red square is where the vacation is happening. That'll allow a little bit more space to pave and allow for some parking. On the next slide, you'll see that everyone surrounding has access to their properties. So this vacation was specifically pushed to the back half of their property to allow those two properties directly north of them to still have access. They are gaining access off that alley as well. The vacant property in the middle off of Glen Flora has access off of Glen Flora as well as access from that right-of-way on the east side. We did get one letter of objection back from the public notice that we sent out from that vacant lot property owner requesting to maintain access from both the east and west side of that alley. We would like to note that they do have access off of Glen Flora should they choose to request access from there, as well as access from the east side of the alley. As it stands right now, there is no paved access to their property at all, whether it be from the alley. All the pavement stops before it gets to their property anyway. And then our property home on the very east side has access off of Buttrick. On the next slide, it's just a picture of what that property lines will look like once that vacation goes through. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Yep.
There is green space at the end of the driveway, and there are trees there. Are those trees going to be taken down?
That would be up to the applicant. They would have to apply for a permit to remove those trees if they decide to remove them. It is a free permit application, but they could propose to pave farther back. They could keep the tree. They could apply for a permit to remove it. It would be up to them.
And you stated that the intention was to pave it or to leave it as gravel?
To pave it. So removing the gravel, parking on hard surface.
So the alleyway, when you come in, will be gravel, and then the pavement will start for their driveway?
The alley is paved. The portion that is on their lot that they've been currently using, so paved on the alley, and then turning onto their lot, it turns to gravel. So this would allow them to remove the gravel from their property, pave farther into the alley that would now be their property and then be able to park on that.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, thank you. Would the petitioners like to add anything? Yes, please. If you'd please come up to the podium. If you're both going to speak, come on up and we'll swear you. Please raise your right hand.
Levanta tu mano derecha. Levanta tu mano derecha.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Swear, sir.
They both answered in the affirmative. Okay. Please make your comments. And as I said before, make sure that you're already doing it. Sign your name on the sign-in sheet.
Okay,
Thank you.
I did.
You already did. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Do I have to press any button? No, apparently not.
No buttons there.
Okay, so as the young lady stated,
Your names, please, and affiliation.
I'm sorry. My name is Herman Meralda, and this is my mother, Marina Ochoa. I'm the son. She's my mother, the owner. So the reason we are requesting to vacate this, this piece of land is because our house doesn't have parking. Where we are currently parking, we were told we're not allowed to park there because one is considered green area, and also we're not allowed to have gravel in there. So that's the reason we are requesting parking to be able to park there.
Okay. Do any of the commissioners have questions for the petitioners? Commissioner Haynes.
At the end of that, when you're pulling in there, do you have a garage in your home?
We do have a garage. So the garage is, it would be on the left side. Yeah. So facing that,
And currently, are you able to access that through?
We are currently able to access
Okay.
that.
And you have more cars than fit in your garage?
Yes, so it's a two-car garage.
Okay.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay. I'd like to ask if there's anybody else here who would like to speak out either in support of or opposition to this request, or even ask questions. Nobody? Okay, we do have a letter of objection that I would like to read into the record. This is from John T. Larson, who owns a property at 1342 West Glen Flora Avenue. Says this right-of-way is a city alley that provides access to the back of all houses and lots on the 1400 block of Glen Flora. Our family owns vacant property in the middle of that block. We request that alley access remain from both Buttrick and Yeoman Streets. Signed, John Larson. October 3rd, 2023. Yes, please.
This is for Noelle and her department. It looks like it's green going to Buttrick, so there currently is not access coming in off of Buttrick for that neighbor.
That is correct. They do not have access from, or there's technically not paved access on either side of that alley. That pavement stops before their property line. Should they, ever build a home or anything like that and want paved access, they could look at either getting a curb cut off of Glen Flora from the north, or they could look at getting the alley paved from Buttrick and going to their home in that way.
So no one currently is using that green space off of Buttrick to access a driveway or anything? No. Okay.
And that's just a dirt alley, right?
The alley from Yeoman Street onward, heading east, is paved. The rest of it is grass, though.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, I'd like to ask for a motion then.
And just, this one's going to be a little different. It's a vacation, so there are no findings of fact to account for.
No vacation. Okay, do we have a?
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Haynes.
I'll make a motion that we recommend for approval vacation of a portion of the right-of-way south of Glen Flora Avenue between Yeoman Street and Buttrick Street as indicated on the zoning calendar V323.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Haynes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Haug. Any further discussion on this motion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Haynes?
Yes.
Haug?
Yes.
Grimes?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you.
Community Development Committee, Monday, November 6th, approximately 5 p.m. in this chamber. That's the next step. Okay. Before we move on to the last item, I just want to make a comment. You know, as all the older people were moving on from planning and zoning, and we started being very concerned about their loss to the city, and they were replaced by these young faces, and some of us had our concerns about whether they really had the depth of knowledge that would be needed to handle the responsibilities of the older folks that were moving on. And I just want to say I have been extremely impressed by all of your staff. You've just done an excellent job in filling these positions, and it's just been a real treat, a real delight working with all of your new staff. So I just want to commend you on that and commend all of your new staff on how they've really taken this over. Thank you. Okay, item 6, discussion of the rules of procedure for planning and zoning commission. I think I'm going to turn this over to our legal counsel.
Thank you, Chair. From the handout, you can see the proposed changes to our existing rules of procedure. And I can walk you through them one by one. I know I spoke of them. I spoke of the proposed changes at our last meeting, but I can go into a little bit more depth now that you have them in front of you. On page 1, Article 2, Section 2, the change here makes clear that the chair determines evidentiary issues, for instance, whether something is relevant, whether something is unacceptable in terms of testimony, and more importantly, the chair may impose a reasonable time limit for testimony. And so it's not something that he must do. However, in cases where we have an abundance of people who wish to address the commission and we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to address the commission, the chair at that point can limit testimony or comment to what is usually 3 minutes. So that is the change proposed in Article 2, Section 2. Going on to the second page, this is Article 3, Section 3. This essentially adopts or allows participation through remote means. So if someone is unable to come to the meeting, if one of the board members is unable due to childcare issues, due to personal illness or injury, those are acceptable means for remote participation. In order to allow that, we have to have in our rules adoption of the ability to have remote means as set forth in the Open Meetings Act. Going on to Section 6, this allows us to adjourn meetings without having to go through a roll call, which is something that we like to do. I know we just want to have a voice vote at the end. This makes explicit your ability to adjourn the meeting just with the voice vote. You don't have to go through a roll call. And you can see further in Section 6, there's just some cleanup in terms of language, requests for conditional use permits, variances, and amendments. can be approved by simple majority. How it was before is that the same language was repeated for conditional use permits, for variances, and for amendments. This one just gets rid of extra language. And stop me if you have any questions. Going on to the next page, Article 4, Section 2, there was a matter that came up a few weeks ago regarding a car wash that was somewhat contentious. The applicant wanted a continuance, and so what we want to think about here is, on a first time up, do we want the applicant to have to appear when they ask for a continuance, or is it acceptable for a continuance to be granted administratively? So that's this proposed change. The change would be that city staff can administratively give that continuance. And so if we know that there's not going to be a presentation that night, there's maybe notice issues, we can't have the hearing that night, this allows us to not not bring in the applicant just to ask, just to be granted that continuance. And then next page, Article 5, this is a little bit the meatiest change, and this is essentially the way that the hearings are conducted. Previously, we had the applicant provide their presentation, and then staff would provide the presentation afterwards. What we've been doing lately is staff provides the background, staff goes through relevant law, the reason why this application isn't by right, and then after that, the applicant can fill in the blanks, much like you saw earlier for the cases that we heard today. You would hear then things that aren't necessarily zoning related, but more business related. In the case of the White Castle lot, they're telling you why they're asking for it. That follows up staff's presentation of what it is that they're asking for. And so that completes the proposed changes.
Question on this by commissioners.
I just have one question. In Section 2, Article 2, Section 2, you mentioned that typically it would be a 3-minute time frame. We don't say that specifically in here, and would we put that in here? And then secondarily to that, would that information be available to the public for them to know when they come here that that is going to be potentially their time limit? Because if someone's come in with a 10-minute presentation and they aren't aware that they only have 3 minutes, they may feel they haven't had their fair say.
So 3 minutes is what's generally accepted, and the reason why we can make it 3 minutes, but as you stated, there might be times where someone comes in and they want to put a longer presentation before this commission. And so that's why it's reasonable. It's within the determination of the chair. The only requirement here really is that everyone who wishes to speak is given an equal amount of time in terms of objectors' testimony. That does not apply to applicants because the applicants have to provide persuasive testimony. It's their application, and so they are entitled to a longer presentation. However, for objectors, what case law has generally found is that 3 minutes is a reasonable amount of time. Any less than that has not been tested in the courts, and we don't want to test it. We don't want to say 1 minute and see what happens. But a reasonable amount of time, I think, provides the wiggle room necessary for the chair to look out and see what we're dealing with in terms of capacity and make a judgment from there to maybe say, okay, we have 60 people here today, it's going to be 3 minutes each, or we have 10 people here today, let's cap it at 6, as long as it's reasonable.
I remember a situation a few years ago where there probably were 60 people in the room, but they did designate a couple of people to speak, and those people spoke for more than 3 minutes. And in that case, I'd want to be able to hear that, rather than hear 60 people with their 3 minutes. So I like the flexibility, I think.
And what we did in those cases, there's only been a couple of times that that's happened. And what we did was to find out, first of all, if there was a spokesman that the group would allow to speak for them. And in those cases, we actually allowed the spokesman more time because they were actually speaking for the whole group. And there's also the occasion when we have people speaking as individuals, maybe they don't have a designated spokesperson, but when you have a number of people speaking and they start becoming repetitive, saying the same thing over and over, not introducing anything new or any new evidence, we can also, at that point, we have the option to just ask if there's anybody who has anything to say that has not already been said, so we're not just listening to the same thing over and over again. So we do have some flexibility. Any other discussion? No.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Yes, please.
So I have a couple of recommended additions to those changes. Most of them are pretty simple. On Article 2, Section 4, Number 3, since we're no longer permitted to require presenters to give us their address, I would suggest we remove the words "and addresses," where it says record the names and addresses of all persons. In the old days, we would make people tell us their name and their address, and we no longer ask for the address, so.
What does our sign-up sheet ask for? Just the name?
Just their name.
Just the name, okay.
Oftentimes, like, for example, the Take 5 people wrote Take 5, and maybe their role with it, but.
So, Noel, does that mean when you have objectors or supporters, they don't need to be from Waukegan to speak?
Go ahead.
I can, so this is an open meeting. Anyone who wishes to address the commission is entitled to address the commission. However, one thing that we can do, it is within our ability, is to ask for an address. They need not give it to us if they don't want to, but we can ask for an address, and we can even prioritize Waukegan residents. We can say, okay, what's your address, and they don't want to answer, then for the people who did answer and provide a Waukegan address, they can go first, and everyone will still have a bite at the apple, but non-residents would just go after, and those who don't provide the address.
And the public notice for the public hearings reflects that. All of the property owners within 250 feet of a petition application receive a mailed notice with that objection or support form. They get the form in the mail that's specifically addressed to them with their address of the property that they own. There's also a poster put up on the property that lists the date and time of the hearing, and there's a public notice printed in both the English and the Spanish language newspapers. So anybody reading that public notice can be aware of it and, of course, is invited to attend the public hearing. But it's those property owners within the 250-foot boundary that actually get the forms to fill out.
Whether they live in Waukegan or not.
Correct.
Correct, if they're within the 250 feet. So in the case of these annexation applications, some of the property owners that are getting notified are outside Waukegan in unincorporated areas. And other applications that are, on the city's perimeter.
I think it's important that we prioritize Waukegan I understand that sometimes people are impacted who do not live in Waukegan, but I like the idea of asking for the address so that we know where they're from. And of course, if somebody's going to be impacted by a project, we want to hear that. But I do,
Yeah, but they're not required to give their address, but we're allowed to ask their address?
That's correct.
I mean, during their testimony, we could ask that as well. When you say, what is your relation to this? And they can say, I'm the next door neighbor or
Correct.
whatever, you know.
And a lot of times they'll volunteer that.
And I think certainly in the case of the times that we have many, many people speaking, hearing from Waukegan residents first is just a good practice. And adjacent property owners, maybe as the second tier, non-Waukegan, but adjacent.
And we haven't had situations like that very often. I mean, in the time that I've been on the commission, which is like about 14 years, we've had a couple, 2 or 3 times.
They're few and far between.
Exactly.
But it's good to be prepared ahead of time for when they do.
Exactly.
When they do appear, so,
You have to have the mechanism in place.
yeah. So in that respect, if we want to leave and addresses in, that's fine with me. I'm not opposed to it being there. It was just that I knew that there was the change, and I believe it was case law that created the change, that we couldn't demand people provide their address.
Absolutely, and there's just a small distinction here. It puts the onus upon the secretary of the commission to record it. I have no problem striking addresses. It can still be recorded by the secretary regardless of whether it's in our rules or not. But as you all say, it is important to prioritize Waukegan residents. We can certainly ask. They need not answer, but it's an important part of our process.
Excellent. My next item was in Article 3, Section 9, so right before Article 4. Just, I think that last sentence there needs a little further clarification rather than this shall be at the discretion of the mayor. The decision whether to remove a member shall be at the discretion of the mayor. Because it's a little bit unclear, in my opinion, what this refers to. In Article 5, Section 1, Number 4, written communications would ordinarily fall under one of our agendas as reports or other information, which we would generally put at the bottom of the agenda. So if there were written communication related to an item on the agenda, we would address it with that agenda item. But if it were other just general information, I would recommend that be listed lower on the agenda after the public hearing items.
I'm sorry, Noel, which one was that? Article 5?
Article 4, Section 1, Number 4, written communication. I'd just say move that down to just before adjournment, in my opinion. I'm not wedded to that, but I think that's been more of our practice and more similar to what the city council does and the city council committees, putting reports and communications further down the agenda. My more substantial comment is in Article 5, Section 4. And the chairman and I have talked about this before, and I think he represented it well this evening. Items 5 through 10 in the corrected list there ask for proponents and opponents. And we've had a number of cases where people have attended meetings and then just said, well, I'm not really for or against, I just need to understand it better. I have a question that I want to ask. So if there's a way to present that where we're just opening up the floor for anybody with a comment in favor, support, or opposition, and I understand if the commission feels it's important to put one before the other. On the other hand, it does give one side of an argument, in my opinion, a stronger voice if they're the first to talk, if the opponents are first or the proponents are first. Maybe that's just my perception, but just something for you to consider, that it might be worthwhile to just ask for public comments and then let people say, I support it, I oppose it, or I just have a question to ask, and then give their position. not wedded to that, just a thought. Then in
I'm
section
wondering if our legal
5.
counsel has any comments on that.
As I understand it, it would be merging 5 through 10 into something akin to comment from the public.
Yeah, comments from the public, questioning, question the commenter, rebuttal. I didn't get far enough to phrase it perfectly, Marcus. I just,
No, that makes sense. I think
So-
if we make it a little bit less specific, then that provides the wiggle room for the council to determine how they want to hear it. They can make it proponents, objectors, whoever happens to be closest to the microphone, and then we can just call it, I think, public comment, and then implicit in that is the rebuttal, questioning, and so I like how you put it. 5 through 10 is consolidated, and it just deals with public comment. I think it makes it simpler.
maybe it's one item, maybe it's testimony from the public with question and rebuttal, or something to that effect, if the commission feels that way.
And then the commission would question any of the public speakers
Sure.
at the end?
Like you do now. Mhm. If you want clarification on their comments or want the petitioner to respond and then you go back to the commenter. I think just leaving that open so that you have the flexibility to manage it however it flows, and not restrict it to this happens and then this happens and then this happens.
Which even if we did that, that would be fine if that was what was best for what was going on at the
Sure.
moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that giving the chairman the authority to manage the meeting operation as necessary to make it flow and be effective is critical, especially in those long meetings when we have lots of people in the room. We want to make sure that we do it right, that we give everybody the opportunity to speak and to present their arguments and to respond to other people's concerns.
And of course, occasions when this even becomes a factor are going to be very few. It's going to be very rare that we even have, that many people that either want to support or
Yeah.
oppose something, so.
Yeah, and
But
you
it's-
may have a sense of who's in the room, so you may know that there are 5 supporters and 25 objectors, so you may at one meeting call for the supporters first, just to get through those 5 people.
Yeah, and I try to get a sense of the room, before the meeting starts. But in a case where there are a lot of people that, it appears there's going to be a lot that want to comment, I would probably ask how many are speaking in favor of, how many are speaking against, so at least we can, figure out how we're going to handle it.
Yeah, I think allowing you to have that flexibility is always the best practice for the operation of the commission.
Thank you.
Where would we insert when you ask?
Could you hold your button on your mic, please, Commissioner? You are. Could you move your mic a little closer to your face?
Okay, can you hear me now?
I cannot hear you I can hear you, but I can't hear you like you're on your mic, but maybe that's
Well, my question is basically, we have written concerns of the public, basically of approval or disapproval, and when is that written, and when would that be in sequence?
The chairman reads those.
So what would this be?
Yeah.
I try to read those at the point that we are getting public comment, because this is public comment. Yeah, but it's just an absentee person that's making a public comment.
And I think if we make it less explicit, then testimony from the public would account for written statements as well.
Correct. That's the way I've handled it anyway.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. In section 5, I just had some cleanup language on item number 1 and item number 6. We still have his and her, and I know, Marcus, you've made other corrections for there and they. Again, that's section 5, item number 1. His and her should be there, and item number 6, he, she, has should be they have. Yes. And then in Article 7, under a conflict of interest, just a note that Article 1, Section 2 also talks about recusing oneself. I don't know if we want to keep that duplication of language. I'm not opposed to leaving both in. I think, having that coverage is fine, but I just wanted to call it out.
To that point, I think you're right. I don't see a reason for it to be in Article 1. Article 1 are general provisions, and conflicts of interest are a little bit more specific.
Yeah. That was my thinking as well. But again, I'm not opposed to it being in both places. Some people stop after Article 1. In Article 7, Section 4, city planner should be replaced with planning director or zoning administrator or one of the more formal director titles. And then in Section 3, I know there's been some conversation off and on with changing conflict of interest language or ordinances for the city with regard to conversations with developers while their applications are in process. And for those who attended the planning commissioner training or saw it later, you heard that it's not good practice to speak with petitioners while their applications are in process. So I don't know if we want to formalize something in here, but I think if we did Section 3 or maybe an additional section between Section 3 and 4 would be an appropriate place to put that kind of language if we wanted to make a formal requirement that petitioners were not to engage in conversations with commissioners while their petitions were in the pipeline for review, and that would protect you from being approached, give you a specific place to reference. I'm sorry, I can't speak with you. It's in our rules of procedure, and petitioners can then be also informed by us. We can have it in the application so they're referred to that language, if that's something that you want to add. And those were the entirety of my recommended changes.
That last item, I think, is one that I would support putting in the, in these rules, because that happens to me from time to time when there's an issue that somebody has a concern about. I do get the calls.
I agree.
And I tried not to make any commitment or, show any support or opposition, but it would be nice if we had something specific so that any commissioner, has the rules right there as to what they can and cannot do, and I could even just, and we could just, tell the person that calls, we're not allowed to, based on our rules, and, just
I think it gives you
propriety.
protection so that you're not put on the spot, you're not cornered to give somebody a response.
Well, we can wiggle out of the spot, let's put it that way, because they'll put us on the spot.
Yes, they will put you on the spot, you're correct.
Right.
But it does give you an out.
In a lot of other municipalities, that might be called appearance of impropriety. And so we do want to limit even the opportunity for someone to allege that something untoward has occurred. And so a prohibition on what's called ex parte communication is a standard provision in a lot of these rules. Another thing that I often counsel when these things pop up is just to tell someone who reaches out to you, who wants to discuss this, show up to the meeting. If you want to be heard on the record, come to the meeting. We meet up every, second Thursday of the month. You'll be able to be heard, and you'll be able to be on the record, and your concerns will be published and addressed.
That's the end of my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any comments or questions regarding what we just?
I do have a question. So the ex parte communication is when something is actually in process, or is it before it gets in process? I mean, at what point? I've had people call me because I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission about a project that's like a pie in the sky kind of thing. And I'm not sure whether I should be talking with them or not. It's not in, I don't think it's in process, but it could be eventually. And, clearly they're looking for an opinion or how I might view that project.
I would be very reluctant to have conversations where there is a chance it'll appear before you. And the reason is they might say on the record, remember when we talked about this last year and you said this and this? You just want to make sure that's not a possibility. And so if it is a pie in the sky sort of project at that point, there's still no advantage to discussing it. And in fact, being able to say, I can't discuss it. Even though it's so far off, it might appear before me, and I don't want people to be able to allege that I had already made up my mind. So it gives you an out.
Anything else? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not speaking into my mic. This will be coming up for vote at some time in the future. And do we need to look at one more updated copy before we actually put this on the agenda?
I can provide that. I'm thinking that we should decide on the remote meetings, adopting the remote meetings portion of this, if we want this in place by December, for instance.
So I think, Marcus, we had previously
that
at
already?
one or more meetings,
Yeah.
adopted it at a specific meeting for that meeting.
Right, we did.
Could we handle it that way?
We want to make it explicit and as a part of our rules.
Ultimately, yes, but I'm
Ultimately-
saying in the interim, if
But in the
we,
meantime, if we have an occasion where somebody needs to ask for that consideration at the next meeting, and we haven't approved this yet, we can still do what we did that other time.
So how the Open Meetings Act works is that in order to be able to have that sort of power, it has to be adopted into our rules. And so if this is, if we're all decided for the most part on that one portion, what I can do is I can prepare a version of this rule which adopts just that, and then the remainder of these changes won't be included in that version. And then if we want to put something together for December that incorporates whatever changes the commission wants to make, then we can have that as well. That's what I would. That's how I would counsel that.
How did we do it before?
Well, we would just handle it as just this one item and make a change relating to the remote participation
No,
before we
I'm
adopt.
talking about we've had remote participation previously. How do we do it then?
So on that occasion, and as I was looking at this, it was the first time that it had come up, and so we did not adopt it into our rules, and we shouldn't have been able to have remote participation at that point.
So we broke our own rules, is that what you're saying?
Well, yes, I would say that we did, which is why this is, I think, a little bit more important than the other changes.
I think that we've sort of gone through this a couple of times, and what we're doing is cleaning up language. We're not really changing what we've seen today. Can't we put this on the November planning and zoning calendar and to vote on? Right.
I mean, I think that what we've discussed, we're all in agreement for the most part, and it's just a matter of language.
I think the biggest change is the order that we're handling things, right? Whether the staff goes first or the petitioner goes first. That's really the crux of the change.
But we've already been practicing that.
We have been, to see if it works, if it's
And you
comfortable.
have the commission essentially saying, let's continue. So that's not even an issue. The rest of the stuff is really language and cleaning it up, with the exception of remote.
And certainly, when we have it for consideration, let's say we put it on November's agenda, and that wouldn't stop it from being continued. Once again, it wouldn't stop it from being amended on the floor, from making further changes.
We vote on lots of things here, and we ask you to, oh, well, that sounds good, just go ahead and make that change. And I think I feel very comfortable. I won't speak for my fellow commissioners, but I feel comfortable voting on it.
I do too.
On the entire package? Does everybody feel the same way? Okay, then what we would need is to have our legal counsel present a final version of this, or at least a draft of what we've discussed tonight, and ask all the commissioners to review it and make any comments that they would like to make. And if we are all in agreement, then we can vote on it at the next meeting. Does that sound fair?
Can we get it in our packet then?
Yes, we'll put it on the agenda and have it in your packet for you.
Well, we would, what I would like to see is that we get it sooner than that, we get a draft of what we've discussed tonight so that we have a chance to review it before the meeting, before we get our packets.
Absolutely. I'll make sure you all have that well in advance.
Okay, we're all in agreement then?
So all we would need, I think, is a motion to continue this to a date certain. It would be the November meeting.
Mr. Vukovic, would you like to comment? Please come up to the podium. And for the record, even though we all know who you are, first of all, I'd like to swear you in.
Oh,
You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And for the record, please state your name.
Ray Vukovic, 1703 Hyde Park, Waukegan. Just clarification on the prohibition of somebody that's requesting a zoning change or whatever from talking to you. Would that also apply to people who are against the project? Let's look at the White Castle tonight. These folks from the oil change put a petition in. So if these rules were in place, they could not have contacted any of you, but could neighbors come to you with concerns and then the applicant doesn't have that opportunity? So, would it be one or the other?
And I can address this. It goes both ways. Ex-party communication is ex-party communication regardless of who does it. And so the applicant should not have the right to reach out and have a conversation about this application with any of these commissioners, and objectors, members of the public, should not be able to
That's all
reach
I
out
wanted
as well.
to make sure that there was a level playing field. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vukovic. Okay, anything further? All right, then we're agreed that we are going to receive a copy of this, a brushed-up version of this within the next few days so that we can review it and make any recommendations for further changes well in time to get another draft or two if we have to.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. And Commissioner Anderson.
I just have one other question. It would be really nice if we could codify the fact that this group gets training on a regular basis. I really thought the training was beneficial. Does that get put into something like this, or is it a separate thing?
Certainly training can be provided. I think once a year is good. What I would hesitate to do is to put it in the rules, because the question then becomes, what happens if something happens, training is not provided? However, I think that's a great idea to have training on a regular basis on things like the Open Meetings Act, on the zoning requirements that you all have to decide on.
I fully support that as well. I thought the training that we got this year was fantastic, and I was glad that we were able to arrange it, and it helped staff as well, me included. And so I'd be glad to try to have continuing education for the commission. I'm glad that it was well received.
Especially when you have new commissioners who come on board and don't know what they're doing until, that training was very helpful.
I'm glad you felt that way.
And even the old timers, you end up forgetting some things, getting into habits that maybe you shouldn't get into. So, anyway, all right, anything further? Okay, in that case, I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Well, before we get to that, if we can just continue the rules of procedure to November.
So moved.
Continue the rules of procedure to November. Does that mean that at that point we're going to vote on? Because, they weren't on the schedule for a vote tonight.
It would just
It
be
was just discussion.
Right, so it's just continuing the matter, whether it's discussion or up for a vote. What we're doing is we're providing notice to anyone who's watching that this will be up one way or the other without having to go through the notice requirements again.
Okay, but the notice that we're giving is, we're probably going to end up bringing it up for a vote. It'll probably be on the agenda for a vote next time.
Yes, but we don't have to make it that specific. We don't have to say continuance to November for vote. It can just be a motion to continue this matter to November.
Okay, we have a motion and a second,
I motion.
and Commissioner Anderson second. Any discussion on this motion? Do we need a roll call vote on this? Roll call vote, please.
Bill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Haynes?
Yes.
Haug?
Yes.
Grimes?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, is there anything further we need to discuss on this matter before we adjourn? Okay, in that case, I'd like to ask for motion to adjourn. Motion by Commissioner, that's your first motion all night. Motion by Commissioner Rivera.
Second.
Oh, second, I'm sorry. Second by Commissioner Haynes. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned at 8:22.
Thank you, everybody.